Hidden Stories Healed Now. This one is really near and dear to my heart. If you watched last season, you know that I had an opportunity to have my second heartbeat and my boo on a show. This time, it brings me great pleasure and honor to have my first heartbeat with me. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Arthur Hamilton. He is a producer and creator in the sports arena for a major network here in Atlanta. Now, again, you know again why it's special? Because our friend is back, Dr. Tinisha Parker. And if you watched last season, you know she gave us lots of advice and tips on how to deal with some of the challenges we're facing. And she's going to do the same today. This episode is really all about parenting. And it's talking about the challenges of being a new parent and what all of that means, the concerns, the obstacles, the things that are in front of us as we move forward. So if you will allow me, I would love to start with my son, Arthur. Won't you tell us what it's like being a new parent?
It is enlightening, scary, and you kind of want to give them this mold of being themselves. Personally, when I became a parent for the first time a couple years ago, I became a parent of a son, and your life changes, and everything that you do is magnified to a certain extent. And you want to be able to give them the tools and everything that you did not have and did have growing up. But being a new parent it's an amazing feeling, but you're doing everything that you can for your kids and trying to set that precedent as a great role model. I just want to be everything that they wish for, and a good person, father, friend, husband, and I just want to be that Superman.
Well, with keeping that in mind, what challenges are you facing?
The world that we live in it's different for certain ethnicities and certain races. And it is forever changing. We've gone through a time period where it's very hard leaving the house and being looked at a certain way. Everybody's judging a book by its cover. I truly believe that you should judge a person by their character and not the contents of their skin, as a famous man once said. But it's troubling because as a black man in America, I'm viewed completely differently than a lot of other races, and I'm always viewed as the weapon or someone that is a threat. And I want to make sure that the people in our society know that that's not the case, that there are great examples and great role models that are black men. And when sorry, I'm a little choked up for a second.
That's okay.
When we view people a certain way and put them in this box, it forces them to try to break hold of that box. And I think that we as a society should take a look at ourselves and make sure that we can identify with someone by walking in their shoes. If you're viewed a certain way, you try to break that view, break that mold. And I really think that it's hard to be a black man in America. But personally, I feel like I've gone through so many different levels in my life. With a single mom when I was growing up, I got to transition for the first third of my life as a single son. Then, of course, we brought in my little brother, and my mom got remarried, and I was able to find that father figure and that identity from my stepfather, who is my father, and has raised me as a great black man. I kind of got to see the dynamic and the dichotomy of, what a good role model and a good father figure can do to one's life. And, you get to see the different levels of a community, from the rough parts to the middle class to living very well off. And I feel like seeing that, seeing those different levels have really helped and molded me into the man that I am today, and the role model that I want to be for my children and be able to give back to them.
So what has happened to you that causes you this apprehension in society? We talk about, you said that being a black man in America is hard. And so you said you've had lots of experience. Can you share with us just a couple of those experiences that's bringing about this fear with the challenge?
Well, a couple of my experiences, growing up, I'd say the latter part of my life, middle class, and, the driving. In Atlanta, I feel like I have been deemed or labeled as that person of driving while black, being pulled over probably 30 plus times in my 10 years of being in Atlanta with a license. And I feel like I am just objectified and just looked at a certain way because I was driving a specific type of vehicle in a specific type of community at all times of the night. And I feel like it's not right, but at the same time, it's the world that we live in. I have been detained out of a car. I have been pulled out of a car. I have been put on the face of a hood of a car, of a police vehicle, handcuffed on the side of the street while not really doing anything wrong. And I feel like it's not warranted, but at the same time, it's the world that I live in, and I have to kind of accept it, which I don't want that to happen with my children growing up. So
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword.
Understood. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, we're going to explore a little bit more about some of these challenges that he's facing. And we're going to ask Dr. Parker to help us with what she's hearing and the questions that she has in order to help Arthur understand where he needs to go. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
You know, the thing that can cause us the biggest pain of not sharing our experiences is being embarrassed. And I just want you to know, don't be embarrassed. Don't be concerned that the thing that you're facing, the challenge that you're going through, the impacts that you're having are something that no one else is having. See, embarrassment begins to weigh on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there are solutions out there. And that's the whole purpose of talking about these stories, is to provide solutions and hope. Remember, you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. There are other people that can help you. So reach out, touch someone, and get that help. Look for that person that can provide for you what you need. So another opportunity to get a solution is always tune in to Hidden Stories, Healed Now. Hi, welcome back. After our station break, we really were exploring what it is like to be a new parent, a Black man in America, and some of those fears. And now I want to turn the conversation to Dr. Parker. After listening, what are you hearing? What comes to mind? What are the things that you think need to be addressed? And what questions would you like to ask Arthur?
Yes, I think Arthur identified several things. You identified some strengths in your own childhood and some things that you experienced, and you identified some of your fears for your child and your children that you have now. One of the most salient things that I heard, and you actually acknowledged this, was that having a role model, a male figure in your life was probably one of the most significant things that could have happened to influence you. I also heard you say that you wanted to be everything to your children. You want to be everything that they wished, but I also want you to know that you will be everything that they need. And I am hearing the challenge of wanting our children to live in this ideal world, and I have 3 daughters too. I'm wanting to live in this ideal world and trying to balance that with what the reality of the world is. So I want to ask you, what do you think your biggest strength is right now as a father to help guide your children?
I think my biggest strength is time and being there. The time of going through everything that they're going through in their life, all of the steps, all of the levels. A lot of people don't get that time. They're off doing, in their corporate jobs or having so many different activities that they forget about being home and being present. I think that is my biggest strength, is being present. The world that we live in now has given me that opportunity to be home more, and I feel like I'm really trying to take control of being in the present and being there with all of the levels of them growing up, which has really helped me in the past couple years.
That's a remarkable answer. It is a wonderful thing that you realize already that your presence, even if you don't have the answers, and indeed parents don't have the answers to fixing the world's problem, but you acknowledge and understand already as a young father of young children that your presence is one of the things that will really be a significant guiding light for them. I heard you say that it is a challenge to be a Black man in our society, and I 100% agree with that. I would also say that you are raising a beautiful biracial, but the world may oftentimes see her as a Black young lady.
Yes.
And being a Black young lady in this world can be very difficult at times too. And I think you and your wife are going to have to really be on the same page in some of those conversations about how are we going to raise our biracial child so that they have this strong sense of self awareness, because the world is going to constantly tell your child what she is and what she isn't, and your son what he is and what he isn't. But we have to, as parents, really ground our kids in what we know them to be.
Right.
And what do you know your children to be?
I know them to be strong and confident, and whether they do it 100% wrong or 100% right, they're doing it at 100% to the way that they think they can do it. I also want them to have that self-identity, that positive, confident self-identity regardless of any situation. And I really feel like that is one of the big things that I want to have a strong handhold on. Raising a man in this society, it's not easy, but I have experience with that because I'm a man and I grew up with boys, right? It's a whole nother ballgame raising a woman, especially a Black woman in this world. It's very scary. It's enlightening to where I have to worry about everything in the world affecting her and not just her actions, because she's viewed a certain way, as I was talking about earlier, as a book by its cover, with what she's wearing, how she dresses, how her hair is, how she acts. And again, I don't have any experience in that, so I have to really lean on my wife and my mom and all of the positive, strong woman figures that I have in my life and in her life to kind of help her with that identity and kind of hold and bring her along. I want her to be able to be herself, not worry about what society and the other factors are and how they view her, but be able to succeed as well. And that's big for me. Is everybody deems success differently. I want her to be successful in our eyes, but of course you want to be proud of your kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you not only want to help build their own self-awareness, you also want to arm them with information about how the world is going to perceive and maybe even respond to them. So one of the things I like to tell parents is, particularly of our kids of color, is that we arm our kids with information even about microaggressions and unconscious bias. And if you have biracial children and their hair is curly naturally, but then they make it straight and you get comments like, oh, your hair is so pretty when it's straight.
Yeah.
Well, you make sure you let your little girl know that her hair is just as pretty and just as beautiful when it's curly too, because that's the way it grows out of her head. And these are things that we don't always think about, but that happen constantly in a day for our young people, and they're well-intentioned, and people are trying to make compliments without really understanding that there's an undertone that one is better than the other. So we definitely want to make sure we attend, not only we love them, but we equip them with information so that they're aware, this person isn't aware that my curly hair is just as beautiful. Maybe I should let them know.
Right. Right.
You know, I think our conversation today is really enlightening from the perspective that we have more and more diversity today than we have ever had. These generations coming about today, they are looking at who I love, whom I want to be with. They're not thinking about, you know, the fact that I fell in love with a Hispanic, or I fell in love with a Black person and I'm not Black. And I think that's the beginning of the evolution of a change when we begin to talk about racial differences and what's happening. But nonetheless, that means we have to change the community and society in which we live in, and the impacts of that. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up talking about some of the things that we can do differently and how we can make this world a better place. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
You know, the thing that can cause us the biggest pain of not sharing our experiences is being embarrassed. And I just want you to know, don't be embarrassed. Don't be concerned that the thing that you're facing, the challenge that you're going through, the impacts that you're having are something that no one else is having. See, embarrassment begins to weigh on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there are solutions out there. And that's the whole purpose of talking about these stories, is to provide solutions and hope. Remember, you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. There are other people that can help you. So reach out, touch someone, and get that help. Look for that person that can provide for you what you need. So another opportunity to get a solution is always tune in to Hidden Stories, Healed Now. Hi, welcome back. I am so glad that we're having this conversation because I think it's so important as we're talking about parenting, we're talking about community, we're talking about some of those challenges that are there. So before we get to a question from our audience, one of the things that I think is really important for us to kind of summarize, Arthur, if you had to tell us one thing that you wanted the society to know about where we are today and how to cope and deal, what would you tell them?
I would say, it's a great question. I would probably say to make sure that you are doing everything in your power to be your true self and have your true identity, and voice that as much as you can in your actions, in your character, and everything else will fall on the wayside. Just be your true self, because when you're not, people can tell that you're not authentic, and people can tell that you are a bit trying too hard or fake. So I would probably say be true to oneself and their own identity, and try to make sure that is seen in a positive light.
Thank you. So, Dr. Parker, if there's one thing that you want us to walk away from the conversation when we're becoming a new parent, and we know that we're facing some of these challenges, whether it's a mom trying to raise a son, because we're not the same sex, whether it's a mom trying to raise a daughter, or a father trying to raise vice versa, or a couple, what is the one thing that you would say to us that to help our children and to help us to move forward, that we need to consider and think about for the well-being of our family?
The most important thing that I believe parents can do for their children is something your son has already stated, and that is really to be there for your child, to foster and develop that relationship of communication, have that sense where your child feels like they can come and talk to you, even if what they share is going to be something that they know you may not necessarily condone or like, because in your absence, that void will be filled. And so for all of our parents out there, the most important thing you can do is just be there and stay there with your kids. It's just immeasurable, and I think provides that foundation for growth for our children.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that input. And now we're going to see if we have a question from the audience.
My question is for Dr. Parker. During this time of COVID, our children are spending way more time using technology. Do you have any suggestions on how to balance that technology usage, because it's really becoming their social outlet as well?
Thank you for that question. And it's an excellent question, and one that we get often from parents and working in education. One of the things I share with our parents is that avoiding technology is not an option in this day and age. It's really more about giving our kids the skills they need to manage their experience with technology. Another thing we may not want to continually measure, I know there had been out there measuring how much time your kid is on a device. Let's start to measure how much time they're off and really fill that time with meaningful experiences with the family. That's a much more manageable and controllable time space that a parent has. We're going to do 3 hours or 2 hours off, and you don't have to do it in a block. You can do it throughout the day. And for 20 minutes, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about how we're going to get our day started. And then for 45 minutes, we're going to do lunch, since we're all here at home together. So I think spending and organizing some of that off technology time is a better use of parents' energy, because you're not going to keep your kids off of technology. They'll have it. Their friends have extra phones. You take your kid's phone, a friend will give them a phone so that they can stay in contact. So managing, providing skills for our students, and just being aware of what your child is doing when they are online.
Wow. I tell you, some great tips, some great advice, some things for us to consider, as parents and moving forward, because you're right, technology is going nowhere. And technology continues to get more and more sophisticated. And it's targeted, right? It's targeted at children, it's targeted at others. And so it's to a point you get a text about things that, somebody's trying to reach you or something that they're trying to do. So it isn't going anywhere. And I think as we summarize this session and we think about, the community impacts, it's really important for all of us. Speak your voice, take your stand, and let's help this community. The more that we can help others and give others a different viewpoint, a different lens, something to look at each person differently and experiences, I think the more we're going to be able to have others to accept us for our character, and accept us for whom we are. And the last thing I will say is that empathy is extremely important. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Turn that table. What does it feel like? You know, if I am a Black man and I'm going through this, you know, as we've been facing all of these times, I've had so many white colleagues say to me, but I don't understand. And it's like, you won't because you're not Black in terms of walking, but you can empathize with where we are. You can come to the table and speak and understand with your colleagues. Help them to understand the difference. Help them to acknowledge what's there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have. Can you join me in thanking my guests today? Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Remember, you free yourself when you let the secrets out. Have a great day.